Somewhere inside Max Verstappen's contract sits a clause that lets him walk away from Red Bull 2 full years early. The team has known it is there for months. This summer, it comes alive. So they fly him to Austria. They sit him down with the billionaires who own the company, and they ask him to sign it away. He refuses. He will not promise next season. He will not scrap the clause. And the 4-time world champion has just looked straight into the cameras and called his own team the 4th fastest car on the grid. So here is the question the entire paddock is asking right now. What does Max Verstappen know that Red Bull does not? The timing is everything. So let me explain what is actually happening here. On paper, Verstappen is locked to Red Bull until the end of 2028. 3 more seasons of the best driver of his generation, tied to the team that built him, and the money wrapped up in this is staggering. The deal Verstappen signed back in 2022 is reported to be worth around $275 million across its life, paying him something close to $70 million a year. He is, by a clear distance, the highest paid driver in the sport. This is not a contract anyone walks away from on a whim, but contracts in Formula 1 are never as solid as the paper they are printed on, and buried inside this one is an escape route. The clause itself is simple in spirit. If Verstappen is not near the front of the championship by the summer break, he is free to leave, not at the end of his deal. For next season, the window does not open in some distant future. It opens in a matter of weeks, and this is where it turns dangerous for Red Bull. Verstappen is not near the front. He is not second. He is not third. He is sitting 7th, more than 100 points behind the driver leading the championship. The maths that sets him free is not close. It is already done. If you are wondering how a single driver ends up with this much power over a billion-dollar company, so is everyone inside it. So the owners of Red Bull do the only thing they can think to do. They call a meeting. And not just any meeting. The location is Hangar 7, Red Bull's glass cathedral in Salzburg. It is the middle of the week, a few days before the cars run in Barcelona, and the names sitting across the table from Verstappen tell you exactly how serious this has become. There is Mark Mateschitz. His late father turned an energy drink into a global empire, and Mark now holds the family stake, 49% of everything Red Bull is. There is Oliver Mintzlaff, the chief executive who runs the corporate side of the business and answers for the racing team. And then there is the man almost nobody in Formula 1 ever sees, Callum Uvidya. The Thai side of the family controls 51% of Red Bull, the controlling share, and Callum sits at the head of it. He rarely leaves Dubai. He almost never appears at a race. He flew in for this. To grasp how invisible this man normally is, look at what he did just last year. Callum quietly moved a slice of his personal stake, a holding worth more than $1 billion, into a trust based in Geneva. It barely registered in the news. He helps control the most valuable energy drink on Earth from the shadows, surfaces in public for almost nothing, and answers to no one above him. When a man like that boards a plane to sit in a room with a single driver, that driver is not in any ordinary negotiation. That detail alone tells you everything. Nobody flies the controlling shareholder across the world to talk about car upgrades. They are there because one driver has become the most important asset they own. Now look at who is in that room, and then look at who is not. There is no team principal. There is no engineer. There is nobody from the racing operation at all. This is the ownership of the entire company sitting down with one driver and his manager. Verstappen brings Raymond Vermeulen, the man who has steered his career from the start, and nobody else. 2 men on one side, the people who own Red Bull on the other. The owners want 2 things. They want him to commit to staying for the season after this one, and they want him to delete the escape clause, to hand over the one piece of leverage he holds and lock himself in to the very end. He gives them nothing. No commitment past this year. The clause stays exactly where it is. By every account that has leaked out of that building, he is completely unmoved. Afterward, when reporters push him on it, Verstappen barely blinks. It is no one's business, he tells them. The meeting was planned anyway. It did not just appear out of nowhere after Monaco. The people who own Red Bull flew the controlling shareholder in from another continent to hear one word: yes. The word they got was no, and that was only round 1. Because a meeting like this does not happen in a vacuum. It is the clearest sign yet that Red Bull knows the ground is shifting underneath them. You do not summon your most expensive asset to face the owners themselves unless you are afraid of losing him. The very fact that this meeting happened at all tells you Red Bull is already playing defense. To understand why Verstappen feels strong enough to stare down the people who pay him, you have to look at the car. The car is the problem. This season, Formula 1 tore up its own rulebook. New engines, new aerodynamics, a complete reset of the sport. Red Bull built its first ever power unit in-house, working with Ford, and by most measurements that engine is one of the best on the grid. But an engine is not a car, and the rest of the machine, the RB22, has been nowhere near good enough. And there is a cruel joke buried in that. For years, the knock on Red Bull was that they leaned on someone else's engine, so they built their own, poured a fortune into it, and produced one of the strongest power units on the grid the moment it mattered most. Then they bolted it into a car that cannot get the best out of it. The one piece they finally control is being wasted by the pieces around it. In Barcelona, Verstappen crosses the line in fourth. On the timing screen, fourth looks respectable. The reality is uglier. He finishes the better part of a minute behind the winner, and he only climbs to fourth because two quicker cars ahead of him break down in the closing laps, one with a mechanical failure while running second, the other with a steering problem. Strip away that luck and Red Bull is a midfield car carrying a champion. His own teammate finishes sixth in the very same machinery. This is not one driver dragging a great car backwards, it is a great driver dragging an average one forwards. And Verstappen, who has never once softened the truth for a camera, says it straight out. In general, he tells reporters, "We are just the fourth fastest team, not second, not third, fourth. Behind Ferrari, behind Mercedes, behind McLaren." Sit with that for a second. The most dominant driver of the last half-decade, a four-time world champion, publicly ranking his own team fourth on the grid. Rewind only 18 months and this same team was untouchable. Verstappen was winning almost everything, breaking records that had stood for decades. Now a rookie leads the championship. Ferrari is winning races again, and Red Bull is scrapping over the lower steps of the podium. The fall has been that fast and that hard. Look at the names ahead of him right now, and the picture turns even starker. The championship is led by Kimi Antonelli, a teenager in only his second season, in a Mercedes that has barely put a wheel wrong all year. In Barcelona, it was Lewis Hamilton who took the win, his first victory in Ferrari red, on a day that finished with an all-British podium for the first time in nearly 60 years. Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, three teams trading wins at the front. And Red Bull, the team that owned this sport only a season ago, watching the whole thing from fourth. That is the sound of a man who knows precisely how valuable he is. Sitting in that Salzburg boardroom, he is the most important thing Red Bull owns, and he wants them to feel it. The slower the car gets, the stronger his hand becomes. Every poor weekend is one more reason to keep that escape clause precisely where it is. But the car is only half of why Verstappen is so frustrated. The other half is the kind of racing these new rules have created. The 2026 machines lean far harder on electric power than anything before them, and the drivers have not been quiet about how that feels. Verstappen has called the new cars anti-racing. He has compared driving them to a video game, all battery management and lifting off early, instead of flat-out wheel-to-wheel combat. Fernando Alonso went further and mocked the whole thing as a battery world championship. This matters more than it sounds. The people who run the sport actually listened. They have already agreed to start shifting the balance back toward the engine for the next 2 seasons, turning up the raw power and turning down the electric crutch. Verstappen called that change the absolute minimum he was hoping for. Read between the lines, and the message is loud. The champion does not just think his car is slow, he thinks the entire direction of the sport has drifted away from the racing he fell in love with. A driver who is unhappy with his team and unhappy with the rules is a driver with very little reason to sign anything that ties him down. If you are following this saga as closely as the paddock is, subscribe. This channel tracks every twist of the Verstappen story as it lands, and this one is nowhere near finished. Now, while Verstappen is busy saying no in Austria, something else is moving quietly in the background. Something that explains exactly why he feels untouchable. This is the part Red Bull cannot fix with a single meeting. The team Verstappen is being asked to commit his future to is not the team that made him a champion. Almost everyone who built that machine is gone. Start with Christian Horner. He ran Red Bull Racing for 20 years, from the very first day the team existed. Last year, Red Bull forced him out and paid a fortune to make it happen. A settlement reported at around £80 million. The man who signed Verstappen as a teenager is no longer in the building. 20 years of history, walked out the door with no way back. The man brought in to replace him, Laurent Mekies, was promoted up from Red Bull's junior team. Capable, respected, but not the figure who built a dynasty, and not the man Verstappen grew up trusting. Then there is Adrian Newey, the greatest car designer the sport has ever seen, the mind behind every Red Bull title. He walked out and joined Aston Martin, where he now runs the entire team. Gone. And Helmut Marko, the old advisor who discovered Verstappen, who fought his corner for a decade, who was the single most important relationship Max had inside that company. Marko retired at the end of last year, at 82 years old. For a long time, that last name was Red Bull's safety net. Verstappen's contract reportedly carried a Marko clause, a condition that let Max walk the moment Marko ever left. So when Marko walked, alarm bells should have screamed through the building. You would think someone would have seen the danger sitting there. For a long time, it seems, nobody did. But Red Bull caught it just in time and quietly diffused it, getting that clause rewritten before it could go off. So, the men who made Verstappen a champion are scattered to retirement and rival teams. In their place sits a new team principal, Laurent Mekies, and a chain of command that now runs straight up to 3 owners in a boardroom. Verstappen looks around at what is left, and he sees a team that is slower than it was, run by people he never chose, missing every mentor he ever leaned on, and he is being asked to sign away the only door he has left. The same loyalty that once held this whole thing together is the exact thing now working against it. So if Verstappen does walk, where does he go? Two names keep coming up, and the first is the obvious one: Mercedes. Toto Wolff has wanted Verstappen for years, and that has never been a secret. But the picture is messier than the rumors make it sound. One report this month claimed Wolff actually put an offer in front of Verstappen, and that the money was so low it bordered on insulting. Other voices insist there has been no recent contact between the two camps at all, and Wolff himself has said, more than once, that he could not be happier with the two drivers he already has. So which is it? A secret lowball offer, or genuine contentment with what he has got? Nobody outside that circle knows for certain, and that uncertainty is exactly what keeps the story breathing. Verstappen's own father waded straight into the middle of it. When the lowball story broke, Jos Verstappen went public and shot it down, telling the man who reported it, flatly, that he had his facts wrong. Whatever is really going on between Verstappen and Mercedes, the family wants the world to know it is not what it has been told. The second name is Aston Martin, and this one carries a logic that is hard to ignore. Adrian Newey is there now. Honda, the engine partner Verstappen won all 4 of his titles with, supplies Aston Martin's power this season. The designer he trusts and the engine that made him a champion now sit under one roof, at a team with deep pockets and something to prove. If Verstappen wants a project to chase rather than a paycheck to collect, that is the project. But there is a third option almost nobody saw coming, and it does not involve Verstappen leaving at all. Red Bull is reportedly weighing whether to simply buy the clause out, to pay Verstappen a sum, said to be in the low tens of millions, to give up his escape route of his own free will. And this is where the cracks inside that ownership group start to show. Chalem, the controlling shareholder, is said to favor the buyout, to make the whole problem vanish with money. Mateschitz and Mintzlaff are reported to be far less convinced. Think about what that means. The 3 men who flew in to present a single united front to Verstappen cannot even agree among themselves on how to keep him. He has not only out-leveraged the team, he has found the fault line running straight through the people who own it. And through all of it, his camp keeps repeating one careful word: loyalty. Raymond Vermeulen, his manager, has been clear that Verstappen wants to end his career at Red Bull, that the exit clauses have always existed, and that in all these years they have never once been used, that they have always been loyal and intend to stay that way. But listen to the condition tucked inside that loyalty. Max wants to finish his career at Red Bull, yes, but only with a car that can actually win. Listen closely though, and it lands as a warning dressed up as a compliment. Stay loyal, hand me a machine to fight with, and I am yours. Keep handing me the 4th fastest car, and loyalty will only stretch so far, and the clock on this is shorter than it looks. Verstappen's own camp has hinted the decision could land before the summer break even arrives, not after it, which means the next handful of races are not just about points on a board. They are an audition. Every weekend, Red Bull is being measured against a single question Verstappen has not yet answered out loud. Is this still a team that can win? Each bad result answers it for him. There may come a day when Red Bull looks back at this exact moment, the slow car, the empty boardroom, the clause they could not talk away, and wishes they had done something differently while they still had the chance. So everything now narrows to a single point on the calendar: the summer break. The clause is tied to where Verstappen sits in the championship when the season reaches its midpoint, at the final race before the cars fall silent for the summer, the Hungarian Grand Prix in late July. If he is outside the top 2 by then, and he will be, the door swings open. And be clear about how certain that is. He would need to overturn a points gap of more than 100 in a handful of races, in a car that is the 4th quickest on the grid, against 3 teams who are all faster. There is no comeback hiding in those numbers. It is pure fantasy. Everyone involved already knows the clause is going to become available. The only question left is whether Verstappen chooses to pull the trigger. But open is not the same as gone. Some reports suggest the window does not slam shut the instant the break begins. It may stay open for weeks beyond it, possibly as late as October, handing Verstappen the entire back half of the season to decide whether he actually walks through it. So picture the next 2 months from Red Bull's side of the table. They cannot make the car suddenly fast. They cannot bring Horner or Newey or Marco back. They have one champion, a slow machine, a clause about to go live, one owner who wants to write a check, and 2 more who do not. And the driver at the center of all of it has told them, to their faces, that he is promising nothing. Every weekend, the RB22 finishes off the podium. Verstappen's hand gets stronger, and Red Bull's choices get thinner. The team that spent a decade building everything around one man now has to win him back one race at a time, with a car he is already ranked 4th best on the grid. And the most uncomfortable truth of the whole saga is the one nobody at Red Bull wants to say out loud. For the first time since Verstappen arrived as a teenager, the leverage does not belong to the team. It belongs to the driver. The empire does not control its champion anymore. The champion controls the empire. And think for a moment about what is truly at stake here, beyond one contract. If Verstappen walks, The most valuable driver in Formula One lands at a rival overnight, and the entire competitive order of the grid moves with him. A Verstappen at Mercedes, or a Verstappen reunited with Newey at Aston Martin, is not a transfer. It is an earthquake. Every other team, every other driver, is watching this clause as closely as Red Bull is, because where Max goes decides who fights for titles for the next 5 years. As of right now, nothing is signed. No commitment, no buyout, no exit. Just a clause sitting quietly inside a contract, ticking toward a summer break that creeps closer with every race. Verstappen holds the leverage, Red Bull holds the panic, and 3 of the richest owners in the sport, who flew across the world to hear the word yes, are sitting with the word no instead. This story does not have an ending yet. It has a deadline. And when that window opens this summer, the most powerful driver in Formula One gets to decide whether the team that made him is still the team that keeps him. So watch the standings. Watch that summer break. Because the next move in the biggest power struggle Formula One has seen in years belongs entirely to Max Verstappen. And he is in no hurry at all to make it. If you want to be there, the moment that clause goes live, subscribe and stay close. This one is running all the way to the wire,